Welcome to Scorched Earth and a general reading for the sign of Gemini, Sun, Moon or Ascendant for the month of March 2024. I hope you are well. I'm using the Tarot of the Abyss for you today. Before we begin, if the reading resonates and you'd like to go a little bit deeper, there will be an extended you can access at the end. That's link number 1 in the description box. The second link in the description box is to my private community, which is membership based. You can get access to all of the extended content for no extra cost after the membership fee. Hang out with a really extraordinary group of people, and we've got all sorts of things going on over there. I'm going to be live streaming the 3-month overviews from April to June over there, starting from Friday the 1st, actually. They'll be available to buy separately on Vimeo from the middle of the month, but if you fancy joining in live, you're very welcome to do so. Anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's have a look and see what's going on with you, Gemini. Let's have a little flip. 3 cards for Gemini, please. So we have the World card coming out, a bit topsy-turvy there. What about current energy for Gemini, please? We have the Knight of Wands, Sagittarius, that's your opposite on the zodiac right there. And what's coming towards Gemini for March, please? Oh, goodness me, High Priestess. It's funny this. It's High Priestess. Obviously, I read the High Priestess as Pisces, but for the last 6 months, this has been blending in with Gemini energy quite strongly, and I don't know why. There's no astrological correspondence, but that High Priestess is triggering both, and it's a different kind of experience. The High Priestess in Pisces versus this High Priestess in Gemini that I'm kind of feeling, but it is nevertheless there. We have the 6 of Wands sitting at the bottom of the deck, which is very nice. That's Jupiter in Leo, and it represents success. But I think first it's necessary to navigate whatever ending isn't quite happening for you yet. I mean, I think it's on its way around, but I think as things stand at the moment, it's feeling a little bit difficult. Now, sorry, I should have picked a deck already. It is the Waitsmith. We'll give these a little shuffle and then get some clarifiers out, and we'll see what's going on here. But this looks really good, Gemini. So tell me what's going on with the World card, please, here for Gemini. There's the first card. It is the 6 of Pentacles. And we have the Sun. Tell me about the Knight of Wands, please. We've got the 6 of Wands in reverse. And we've got the 8 of Wands. Tell me about the High Priestess, please. 3 of Swords. 2 of Swords in reverse. I like that. And the Page of Cups. And I actually want to put that way around. So that's what I'm going to do. That was how I felt compelled to put it. We've got the Hermit at the bottom of the deck. And I think this might be what is making some of this kind of difficult for you. Let me spread these out so you can see what's going on. Well, I think I've left my camera on for a little bit too long. That's why it's all being a bit blurry and mystical when I move my hands. It's starting to get warm, but it should see us through. It should be fine. So, the one thing that really strikes me, like straight from the off here, Gemini, is that there's some sort of renegotiation about the idea of what success is for you. I mean, I think there's been one version that you've been working to, then there's been a version that everybody else has told you is what it should be. And there's some sort of development and evolution of this that is happening in this very static place that you find yourself at the moment. I think the mutable signs struggle with stasis. I think, of course, you would struggle against it. You know, you're used to being able to move around and flipping between. I just stretch myself out here. Flipping between the light and the dark is the way that you find your balance, if I can put it like that. But I'm going to start over here. And we've got the World card on its side, with the Six of Pentacles and the Sun card. And this is quite interesting because it puts me in mind of a feeling that you've been looking for some sort of concrete closure on something, and it isn't coming. I think what would have been the more comfortable position for you would be if you could have closed the door on something and just moved on. Which we often assume is what is required when we finish a cycle and we move on to the next one, right? We're like, everything nice and neat, tidied up, closed, put down, we move on to something else. And honestly, if it was any other card, any other deck that I'd picked up for the main cards, I might likely have agreed. But in the Tarot of the Abyss, we have the Ouroboros here, the snake eating its tail, and it's fashioned into the lemniscate. It's not actually a true lemniscate. A true lemniscate's got a slightly smaller circle on one side and a bigger one on the other, but nevertheless, there's this idea with both of those images, both of those symbols of eternity. And I feel like what you have been mulling over is whether these concrete endings are actually required. Now, I know that this is quite an interesting perspective to take on this, but I'm looking at the snake eating its tail, and it's like, is anything ever really done? Is anything ever really completed? We might pick ourselves up and move away from things, but is it really completed? Because quite often we take these things with us. And even at the point where we have reached some sort of emotional conclusion on something and we allow ourselves to put a situation down, we are transformed simply by the experience of having lived through that in some way or another. Like, your energy feels highly philosophical to me at the moment, Gemini. And I would have said, for some of you, you might well be up in your head in looking for answers. I don't feel you looking around, particularly outside of yourself at the moment. And so, as you've arrived at this idea that nothing is ever really completed, because whether resolved or unresolved, you carry it with you and it formulates part of who you are at any given point, we've got the Six of Pentacles and the Sun. Now, the Six of Pentacles is Moon in Taurus, and subsequently for me, it talks about having very grounded, very practical emotions about stuff. I mean, there are other interpretations of this card that can talk about charity, the need to redress a balance in some sort of way. But it feels like a kind of foundation that is being built within you that realizes that the idea of an end of some description, or certainly the kind of end that you thought you were looking for, is somewhat the preserve of the human mind, if I can put it that way. And that there's a higher spiritual principle that is at play here that shows you that, like I said, nothing is ever done, nothing is ever completed, because everything continues in a cycle. Now, the Sun card, which is traditionally a card of great joy and celebration and whatnot, can also have different meanings. It can sometimes it can speak to naivete, but most often for me, it talks about consciousness. Like, when we get really conscious about the idea of our spirituality, and maybe it's even our own personal philosophies, and see how that starts to make things in our life fall into place in a way that they did not before. It can change our entire perspective, but it can change our whole experience of being human at all, I think. A spirit living a human existence. I want to pull up another deck now. I'm actually going to pull out the Triple Goddess here. There isn't a sign, I don't think, that isn't going through some sort of significant transformation, and it's highly personal to each of them. You know, it's not like I could say that the fire signs are having to learn to do, you know, this thing, or the air signs are having to do that. It seems to be something very, very specific. People are being confronted with personal challenges, but also challenges that seem very specific to the sign that they are. So there's something very grounding about this higher philosophy that you seem to be embodying right now, I think. Tell me about this Sun card, please. Yeah, we've got the Ten of Swords. How interesting. Yeah. Four of Cups and the Hanged Man. Really interesting. Really interesting. Because we've got the Seven of Wands at the bottom of the deck, and there's something really deep that's going on here with you, Gemini, because what you have, it seems, allowed to close out is the idea that things need to close, to be complete, to be nice and tidy. And what's really interesting with this Seven of Wands and the Hanged Man and the Four of Cups is a recognition of how this particular need in you is, I would have said, a way that your mind and your emotions have found to skirt around the idea of actually moving on. It's a very basic example, but it's one I'll use because I think it demonstrates the point quite well. It's like when something crappy happens to you, and it happens to you at the hands of somebody else, and what you want is an apology, and you become absolutely fixated on the fact that you need an apology from this person, or you need apology from this group of people over the way that they have treated you, because it's been so egregious. How could you possibly not want that apology? And your energy becomes very static because it becomes fixated on the need for this acknowledgement of what you have experienced. Now, I remember talking about this quite a lot at some point, maybe it was back in 2020, where what I pointed out there was that you had hung your ability to be able to move on, your healing, on the actions of somebody else. Now, it's not quite as specific. It might be that specific, actually, for some of you Geminis, but it feels like it's a more general principle that in order to start something entirely new, I have to close out everything to do with the old cycle. Like I said, there's that feeling that you would like to be able to walk away from something that you can't. Not to the extent that you would like to, anyway. And so that feeling of closure isn't there. But I'm wondering how much you are beginning to realise that you hung your permission to heal, your permission for you to heal, on the universe allowing you to close up a situation that you have found quite challenging. Because the Seven of Wands is about being defensive, being guarded, being protective in some sort of way. But sometimes it's about fighting things, invisible assailants that aren't really there. I read, quite into bibliomancy as a thing, right? So pull out a book and you riffle through it, and whatever page it opens up at, the first thing that jumps out at you is your message for the day. And the one that I got from the university the other day was from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And it is, if you are not under threat, do not go to war. And I wonder if you're starting to recognise, Gemini, that you've been going to war with broadly the universe, because there's a certain set of expectations about what a closure looks like that you realise that you've hung all of your expectations on. And where they haven't been met, you're like, well, fuck, I'm just still right in the middle of this cycle. I can't do anything about it, right? It's challenging the expectations It's challenging that the way that you're allowing yourself to heal. And it's asking you to take a different look at this situation, because the example that I gave was probably quite basic and, whatnot. And I say that because it feels like it's a general philosophical point with you about the way that you proceed through life, that you're starting to recognize that have been all of these little blocks and obstacles to you allowing yourself to move with grace through situations. And it may not have been quite so obvious as I need this person to apologize, or I need X, Y, and Z to happen before I can move on. But it seems like somewhere there's been that aspect of it at play. And I think as you're becoming aware of this, as you are getting to grips with it, it's almost like you've shuffled around 90 degrees. I mean, well, maybe you've shuffled around a full 180 degrees here. Because ultimately everything, permission for everything, what you allow, what you don't allow, it all rests with you. It's all a matter of perspective. And sometimes what is needed is a level of self-awareness that has us challenging things that run at such a low level we're sometimes not even aware that they're operating. This is really deep work, Gemini. Really deep work. Well, it certainly would explain the presence of the Hermit here. So when we move into your current energy, we have the Knight of Wands. And it's not the kind of Knight of Wands that we usually see. That's Sagittarius energy, right? Fiery, adventurous, and bold, courageous, fun-loving, all that sort of stuff. And maybe it's even, a little reckless and thoughtless. It seems to be observant and almost suspended in a moment. That's what that Knight of Wands looks like for me, like so captured by the energy of the now that everything else seems to melt away. And it's in that pure space where we realize that the past really doesn't exist anymore and the future does not yet exist. All there is this moment right here and everything that it contains. And I feel like on lots and lots of levels, Gemini, you are challenging what you think that you know, certainly challenging your idea of success and all that sort of stuff here. We've got the Six of Wands in reverse, but also challenging the way that you need information to come in. Now, because you are Gemini, that is quite a significant step forwards. Hey, Gemini is the Knight of Swords, right? It is the processing of information. It comes in, it goes out. You help facilitate that along. Now, there are other things that go with that, such as, the Gemini need for more and more information at any given point. And as I've said in the last couple of months, you have all the information you need. What you're looking to do now is synthesize it. You don't need any more information. We saw that coming up with the Magician repeatedly for you. These don't feel like failures to me. They feel like a challenging of your internal state. What does success feel like to me? What kind of information that I need? What do I need? What kind of communication do I need? Where does my information come from? Is it by way of conversations with people? Is it the things that I read? Is it, you seem to be stepping away briefly from the interactive human dynamic and are almost lost in the moment of working out how it is that you communicate with the universe. I sounds that's like a little bit dramatic, but that's how it feels. Tell me about the Six of Wands and the Eight of Wands. Thank you. We have the Wheel of Fortune and we have the Ten of Pentacles with the Ace of Swords appearing at the bottom of the deck. Now this is double 10 here. This is major arcana with the Wheel of Fortune, and so it is saying that there is something here for you to learn. There's some sort of light bulb moment for you that is very important for your future stability. And all of it is in challenging what you think that you know, the way that you do things, the way that you gather information, the way that you process information. It's interesting because I have Pluto opposing my Mercury at the moment. In but a few short months it's going to be opposing my Moon, because I have those sitting in Leo, right? Obviously that's sitting across from Aquarius. But that's a position of tension. An opposition is tension, squares are tension. Anything that you have in Gemini is being trined by Aquarius right now, which is to say that it's sending waves of supportive energy that are causing you to go really, really deep. So whether you're a Gemini Sun or whether you're a Gemini Moon, Ascendant, Mercury, even Venus, all of these placements, oh fuck it, I mean you can go right across the entire fucking natal chart with this. All of these are receiving information from Pluto, currently sitting in Aquarius. We've had a little Aquarius party actually over the course of February. We had Mercury go through there, we had Venus, Mars, the Moon, the Sun, someone else, I forget what it was. And all of these things, it feels to me, are leveling you up. Now, I know that you felt really uncomfortable in the last couple of months. A little bit in a fog. I mean, I think most signs have felt kind of foggy here. But there's a certain sense of something that is starting to fall into place, and I'm not sure that you would be able to explain this to a satisfactory degree to anybody else who was not experiencing it. There seems to be, you know, a core perception that is being challenged within you. Challenge, is that the right way? I mean, it's giving you supportive energy to challenge yourself. And you feel like you're swimming in a sea of information at the moment. And bit by bit, it's starting to make sense. Like it's changing. By definition, it is changing. The way that you process and the way that you understand that information, it does feel like it is really elevating it, Gemini. And your future stability, like I said, with that 10 of Pentacles there, is dependent on you working all of this out for yourself. Now, the Wheel of Fortune also, when it shows up, can represent some funny little twists and turns of fate that might come in. And it talks about, you know, a potential alignment towards one's destiny if one feels like taking it. But the very idea of endings and completions and, you know, tying up of old cycles, all these different ways of looking at this really do seem to be being overhauled. You might notice here in this Wheel of Fortune, right, she's spinning, obviously, and we've got an angel and a devil on there, right? But even what's in her hands, there's a lemniscate being formed there too. Let's see it. There. It's like the infinite nature of everything. How it weaves back and forth. It's funny, it feels like you've taken a break from being entirely here. I know I've said that already, but you know, when the Ace of Swords appears, sometimes we can talk about it in terms of you know, a new idea, a new level of creativity that comes in. But because the sword suit represent the workings of the mind to me, When the Ace of Swords appears, quite often it is the opening up of a new way of understanding things. I mean, completely change your perception of reality. Now, reality itself is a pretty malleable thing. Cool. It really only exists in a consensus. And because I think consensus reality is breaking down, and I've spoken about this a number of times, there's a new kind of... So I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this chap spoke about the Umwelt, which is the experience of reality that is particular to whatever species is whatever creature is experiencing it, right? So the experience of a mosquito of reality is a very, very different thing to humans. Now, where this weaves into consensus reality, I'm not sure, because I'm not sure that that's a thing for mosquitoes, you know? But there are so many different ways to experience what we are doing here right now. I think you're starting to realise the extent to which the way that everybody's told you to process the information is the thing that's actually been clanging with your spirituality. Right? Because there's some sort of big philosophical shift that is leading to a big change in the way that you literally process the information of the world. And what goes along with that is that there may be increased perception, there may be increased psychic awareness, there certainly might be increased synchronicities and things like that. But you feel to me like you're going through some sort of fairly intense levelling up. The question is, have any of you noticed that that is what you're doing? Because you seem so captured by the moment that it's possible that where all of this fits into Gemini living a human existence may not yet have caught up. Now, when we move into March, we have the High Priestess. I mean, that really is an open channel. Like you, she is a mutable sign. She represents Pisces. But like I said, I always have this weird thing where the High Priestess in the last 6 months really has been speaking to the energy of Gemini too. Different kind of High Priestess energy, but there nevertheless. We have the Three of Swords. We have the Two of Swords. And we have the Page of Cups. And what I want to be really clear is I don't feel like March has a renewed, refreshed pain for you. I speak about the Three of Swords quite often as that point where emotions and truth meet and things are never the same again. But you already have a new version of reality that you seem to be working to, certainly a new understanding of things that you seem to be working to. So I'm confident that this isn't you. However, there's a broader applicability to this Three of Swords. It could be past pain that is now beginning to be seen by you. That's possible. But it could be the way that you are able to perceive the pain of those around you. I mean, the energy of Gemini, when expressed correctly, is very light. It flutters like a butterfly. It flutters around. And it's incredibly sensitive. Sometimes. No, I don't know. I don't think it ever really gets properly overwhelmed because you're so sparky. You know, you think so quickly. But there's a different way that you seem to be approaching the act of processing stuff in March. How about this Three of Swords? Let me see this. Wow, that absolutely spun. Okay, what do we have here? We have the Fool. Which is nice. Three of Swords. We have the Fool and we have the Sun. This feels like a relief, actually, Gemini, and it's relief through release. You know, the Three of Swords is that coming to the surface which you had not been able to piece together before. But I'm going to stand by what I said, in that I feel like you are more able to appreciate the pain of other people. Now, it could be that what happens in this case is that you're a little less judgmental than you might possibly have been before. Right? A little bit more understanding. But there's something of the process here. And I'm not sure if what is going on here is you kind of stepping into a position by which you are able to take what it is that you have been working out for yourself for this last period of time and begin to start sharing that with people, right? The Two of Swords here is that kind of psychological screen where we can't see something or we can't connect with our intuition or our emotions or any of that. When it shows up in the reverse like that, there is a connection. We're starting to see the things that we did not see before. And whether this is happening in your own life with your own pain, whether this is the pain of people around you, or whether there's a greater sense of what is occurring in 2024 on planet Earth right here, I do feel like there's something that was formerly judgmental about you that seems to be ebbing away, and it's being replaced with something very accepting, very forgiving. And I wonder if it's all related to what we were talking about back here, where you were looking for closure and we were looking for a way to walk away from something. Now it seems over here in March, what you're developing is the ability to be able to perceive that lemniscate, perceive that Ouroboros that is just going backwards and forwards. Everything is in a cycle. Everything, there's nothing new under the sun, right? And realizing that it is possible for you to step back and observe that with love and compassion, rather than judgment for others and judgment for yourself. This relief through release is really fucking strong here, Gemini, because, we've got the Sun again, but we've got the Fool. The Fool is liberation, it is freedom, but it is also trust. It's being able to travel light. I think Gemini really does like to travel light. And part of what is ending, part of what is completing here, is for your need for things to end and complete in a particular fashion. Because the reality is that they never really do. And so if you don't need things to end in a particular way so that you can walk away from them, then there's no reason why you can't embody the energy of the Fool and all of the potential that he brings with him, and set yourself off on a new path that is holding all of these things in alignment in a way that you did not before. It's very interesting that in ancient astrology, what we call now the mutable signs were not called mutable signs. Probably not going to explain this very well, but we're given this the sense in modern astrology that it's because they move around, right? Getting ready for the next season, I'm just going to bounce into it, that's all fine. But actually they were called double-bodied in ancient astrology because there was this duality which needs to be balanced within the sign so that the wider balance can occur. Because the whole of astrology is based on the condition of the light. Is it light moving to darkness? Is it light moving to darkness moving to light? Where in the cycle are we? The double-bodied signs, the mutable signs, contain on the macro level that which is experienced by everybody else. And I think there's a quality of the light, there's a quality of your philosophy, spiritual, mental, emotional, that feels more uniquely yours and that is releasing you from needs and expectations that you had before. This is amazing. Right, I'm going to go over to the extended now. If you would like to join me over there, you're very welcome to do so. Like I said, you can do that on Vimeo or you can do that on Circle. And you don't have to do that at all if you don't want to. This is a really special month, and I wouldn't worry about the fact that you are a little less gregarious than usual. Honestly, I don't think that you are worrying about that, because you're absolutely in the moment right now. But there's quite a lot of major arcana energy here, and it does really feel like it's pushing you upwards, Gemini. And what you've been looking for internally is here. Ooh, lovely. Right. Know that I love you all very, very much, and I'll see you soon.